As luck would have it, I'm coming home from school and I see this old woman hammering a stake into the ground with a sign that says free land to the first taker. So I race home to tell Daddy. You see, he's always dreamt of growing daffodils and selling them at the markets. But with Mummy being sick all those years, he's always been home to care for her. I charged through the thick cigarette smoke in my dad's bedroom, tripping over empty beer bottles, screaming, "Hurry yourself and get dressed, Daddy. We're going now to claim your land." But he just lies there, staring into nothing, just like he has been. So I cook him beans on toast, bring it to his bed. We eat in our usual silence. But that night, I grab a torch and I sneak out my bedroom window. Spotlighting the old lady's sign, I look down the path to her cottage. I walk past these shadows of fairy trees, each more than 100 years old, their branches reaching out like twisted fingers of an old hand. It's Irish legend that it's terrible bad luck to disturb a fairy tree, because angry fairies will seek revenge. That's why you see these farmers' fields with a lone fairy tree, stones piled up around the base, just to be sure nobody accidentally bumps it. Come on, how can we Irish still believe in things with wings or superstitions or even a god? If any of that were true, then my mummy'd still be alive. My fist knocks on the ramshackle cottage and a little old lady answers. "What do you want?" I just yell, "We'll take it!" The door creaks open a little bit more, and this old lady stares at me through her bifocals. "Girl, this here land is cursed, full of angry wee fairies. My husband chopped down a fairy tree. He couldn't be told about luck, but I tried to warn him. One day he was crossing the road and..." She trails off. Her cold eyes stare into the garden as she hands me a contract to give to my daddy. The next day, I forge my dad's signature, go back to the cottage, and the place is ours. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't fretting a wee bit when I held that axe above my shoulder, looking at that thick trunk. But then I started thinking about the cancer that ate my mother's body, and how all the chemotherapy and the vegetable juices and the doctors, they just prolonged her suffering, and how it felt watching her die a little more every day, knowing that there was nothing we could do. We had never cut down a fairy tree or put new shoes on a table or walked under a ladder. We were good people who had done good things, and this is how we were punished. So I drive the axe into the fairy tree. Barely pierces the bark. So I swing harder, driving that cold steel into the tree's belly. Chop after chop after chop, and each one is harder than the last, until the fairy tree falls with a thud. I barely had the strength in me to stagger home, but you know something? I didn't cross in the road and get hit by a car. No little winged people attacking me in the middle of the night. So every day after school, I go back and I chop down another fairy tree, till all 24 lay dead. I call company after company to toll away the trees, but hard-grown men quake at the thought of laying a mere finger on them. So I burn the lot of them, and I wait for the winter rain to wash the field from black to green. It's parent-teacher night by the time I tell Daddy, "You have to come. All the mums and dads will be there, and Miss Fisher says she has to speak to you this year." So I help him get dressed in front of the mirror, just like he used to help me. Straightening his tie, combing his wisps of grey hair. And as he steps out on the front porch, he squints into the blue sky he hasn't seen in over 2 years. His legs are so weak that he wraps an arm around mine for support. We go shuffling past all these people who stare without really staring, just dying to get back to their friends and family and say, "You'll never guess who I saw today. You couldn't tell him from The Walking Dead. God love him." We walk in silence down an empty gravel road, his eyes heavy, glued to the crunching rhythm of every step, till finally I stop and I say, "Daddy, I lied. Miss Fisher's delighted when parents don't show. She hates the paperwork and the chat. And this ease just washes over him, and he cracks a sullen smile. And then over my shoulder, he notices this incredible field of yellow daffodils, swaying gently. He closes his eyes, sniffing the sweet breeze. Maybe he's remembering his first date with Mummy, when he brought her daffodils. Or when he laid them on her coffin. Either way, I say it's ours. I planted them so Mummy can look down from heaven and see how much we love her. He's a paler shade, as I explain how I cut down all the fairy trees, but I say, it's okay. It's just a dumb Irish myth. There's no such thing as bad luck. I mean, nothing's happened to us, right? With tears in his eyes, he places a hand on my shoulder. He says, I cut down a fairy tree once, on the spot where I built our house.